The cold metal floor pressed against Taesung's knees as he waited in the grand hall. He had been a slave on planet Valaris for 3 years now, ever since the alien ships had raided Earth and taken thousands of humans. His hands were bound with energy cuffs that glowed blue in the dim light. Guards stood on either side of him, their purple skin and tall frames making him feel small and powerless. Taesung did not know why he was here. That morning, overseers had pulled him from the mining facility where he worked 16 hours each day. They had cleaned him, given him fresh clothes, and brought him to the governor's palace. The palace was unlike anything he had ever seen. Walls made of crystal reflected light in every direction. Floating platforms moved through the air carrying servants and officials. Everything spoke of power and wealth. The massive doors at the end of the hall opened with a soft hiss. Governor Lirana entered, and Taesung felt his breath catch in his throat. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with skin that shimmered like moonlight. Her eyes were silver, and her long white hair flowed down her back. She wore robes of deep blue that seemed to move like water. Behind her walked 4 younger women, clearly her daughters. Each one was beautiful in her own way, with the same otherworldly features as their mother. "Rise," Lirana commanded. Her voice was strong but not unkind. Taesung struggled to his feet. His legs were weak from kneeling so long. He kept his eyes down, as slaves were taught to do. "Look at me, human," Lirana said. Slowly, Taesung raised his eyes. The governor studied him with an expression he could not read. Her daughters stood behind her, their faces showing different emotions. One looked angry. Another seemed curious. The third appeared nervous, and the youngest looked frightened. "Do you know why you are here?" Lirana asked. "No, governor," Taesung replied quietly. Lirana walked closer to him. She moved with grace despite her size. "I have a problem," she said. "A problem that threatens everything my family has built. And you, human, might be the only solution." Taesung's mind raced. What could a powerful alien governor possibly need from a human slave? He remained silent, waiting. "My husband died 2 years ago," Lirana continued. "He was a great leader, but he carried a genetic mutation, a flaw in his DNA that he passed to our daughters." She gestured to the 4 women behind her. "This mutation means they cannot conceive children with Valerian males. Every attempt has failed. Every medical treatment has been useless." Taesung began to understand where this was going, and fear crept up his spine. "The council has given me an ultimatum," Lirana said, her voice growing harder. "If my daughters do not produce heirs within 2 years, our family will lose its position. Everything we have worked for will be given to our rivals. My daughters will be stripped of their titles and cast out." One of the daughters, the one who looked angry, stepped forward. "Mother, I still do not agree with this plan. It is disgraceful." "Silence, Hannah," Lirana said sharply. "We have discussed this many times. There is no other way." Lirana turned back to Taesung. "Our scientists discovered something interesting about humans. Your DNA is compatible with ours in ways other species are not. Humans and Valerians can produce healthy offspring together. The children will be strong, intelligent, and fertile." Taesung's mouth went dry. "Governor, I do not understand what you want from me." "I think you do," Lirana said. "I have reviewed the records of every human slave in the Empire. Thousands of men. I looked at their health, their intelligence, their backgrounds. You were an engineer on Earth before you were captured. You have shown good behavior during your time here. You are strong and healthy. Most importantly, you have something in your eyes that the others do not. Dignity. Pride. You have not let this place break your spirit." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I am offering you a choice, Taesung. You can return to the mines and spend the rest of your life as a slave. Or you can accept a different role. I want you to father children with each of my 4 daughters." The hall fell completely silent. Taesung felt dizzy. This could not be real. He looked at the 4 daughters again. Hannah, the angry one, glared at him with disgust. The second daughter watched him with cool, analytical eyes. The third seemed uncertain, and the youngest looked at the floor. "If you agree," Lirana continued, "you will live here in the palace. You will be treated with respect. When each of my daughters has given birth to a healthy child, you will be granted your freedom. More than that, you will be given land, wealth, and a title. You will become a lord of this empire. And if I refuse? Taesung asked, though he already knew the answer. Then you return to the mines. And you will never leave them. It was not really a choice at all. But Taesung had learned to survive by thinking carefully. Why would you trust a human with something so important? Why not use Valerian technology to fix the genetic problem? Lorana's expression softened slightly, showing approval at his question. We have tried everything. Our best scientists have worked on this for years. The mutation cannot be reversed. And I trust you because I have no choice. My family is everything to me. I will do whatever it takes to save them, even if it means breaking every tradition our society holds dear. She stepped closer until she stood directly in front of him. I am not asking you to love my daughters. I am not even asking you to like them. I am asking you to help us survive. In return, you will have a life beyond anything a human slave could dream of. Taesung looked at each daughter again. Hannah still looked furious, but he saw something else beneath her anger. Fear. The analytical one tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle to solve. The third daughter met his eyes briefly before looking away, and he saw kindness there. The youngest was trembling slightly. These were not monsters. They were women facing the destruction of everything they knew, just as he had faced it when Earth was invaded. I will need time to think, Taesung said. You have 1 hour, Lorana replied. A servant will take you to a private room. When you return, I will have your answer. A guard removed his energy cuffs. Another guard led him through the crystal halls to a small but comfortable room. The door closed behind him, and for the first time in 3 years, Taesung was alone without chains. He sat on the soft bed and put his head in his hands. His mind filled with thoughts of Earth, of his family who he would never see again, of the life he had lost. He thought about spending the rest of his days in the dark mines, his body breaking down until he died forgotten. Then he thought about freedom. Real freedom. A chance to live again, not just survive. When the hour ended and the guard came for him, Taesung had made his decision. He walked back to the grand hall with his head held high. Governor Lorana and her daughters waited. What is your answer? Lorana asked. Taesung took a deep breath. I accept. The royal quarters were nothing like the slave barracks Taesung had known for 3 years. His new room had a real bed with soft sheets, a private bathroom with running water, and a window that overlooked the capital city. He could see the lights of thousands of buildings stretching to the horizon. It felt strange to sleep without the sound of other slaves coughing and crying in the darkness. 3 days had passed since he accepted Governor Lorana's offer. In that time, he had been examined by doctors, given new clothes, and taught the basic rules of palace life. Servants brought him food 3 times a day. Real food, not the tasteless protein paste from the mines. But despite all these comforts, Taesung felt like a prisoner in a golden cage. He had not seen any of the daughters since that first meeting. He wondered what they thought of him, what they felt about this arrangement. The memory of Hannah's angry face stayed in his mind. On the 4th morning, a knock came at his door. Taesung opened it to find the second daughter standing there. She wore simple gray robes and carried a data tablet under her arm. Her silver eyes studied him with clinical interest. I am Minji, she said. May I come in? Taesung stepped aside. Minji entered and looked around his room as if cataloging every detail. She sat in a chair by the window without waiting for an invitation. I want to be first, she said directly. Taesung blinked in surprise. First. To attempt conception with you. I am a scientist. I want to study the process, document everything, and understand how human Valerian genetics combine. She tapped her tablet. I have prepared a complete medical protocol. We should begin within the week to maximize the chances of success. Her clinical tone made Taesung uncomfortable. You talk about this like a laboratory experiment. It is a laboratory experiment, Minji replied. An important one. Do you have objections? Taesung sat on the edge of his bed. Your sister Hannah seemed very against this plan. What about the others? Minji's expression softened slightly. Hannah believes this dishonors our family. She thinks humans are inferior and that mixing our blood with yours weakens us. Yuna is uncertain but willing to trust Mother's judgment. Sora is frightened because she is young and sheltered. But I see the logic. If this works, we survive. If it fails, we lose everything. And you feel nothing about it? No emotion at all. For the first time, Minji looked uncertain. I feel many things. Fear, curiosity, doubt. But I learned long ago that emotions without action are useless. So I focus on what must be done. Over the following days, Taesung and Minji spent hours together. She asked him endless questions about Earth, about human biology, about his life before the invasion. At first, it felt like an interrogation. But slowly, their conversations shifted. Minji began to share stories about Valaris, about her research, about the pressure she felt as the second daughter. Hana will be the next governor, Minji explained one evening as they walked through the palace gardens. That was decided when we were children. Yuna trained as a diplomat to serve the family interests. Sora studies history and culture. But I am the scientist. My value is in my mind, not my position. That sounds lonely, Taesung said. Minji looked at him with surprise. I never thought of it that way. But yes, perhaps it is. 2 weeks later, Minji came to his room late at night. She looked nervous for the first time since he had met her. The medical tests show we are both healthy. The timing is optimal. If you are ready, we should proceed. Taesung felt his heart race. This was real now. No more theoretical discussions. Are you sure about this, Minji? No, she admitted. But I am sure about what happens if we do nothing. What began as a clinical procedure became something more. In the quiet darkness, Minji's walls came down. She was not just a scientist anymore. She was a woman facing an uncertain future, and Taesung was not just a means to an end. They talked until dawn, sharing fears and hopes they had never spoken aloud before. 6 weeks passed. Minji confirmed she was pregnant. The news spread through the palace like fire. Governor Lirana smiled for the first time in months. Servants whispered in hallways. Palace officials sent reports to the council. But not everyone was happy. Hana refused to speak to Minji. She avoided Taesung completely, leaving rooms when he entered them. The tension grew thick enough to taste. Then came the night that changed everything. Taesung woke to the sound of alarms. Red lights flashed in the hallways. He ran from his room and nearly collided with Yuna, the third daughter. Her face was pale with fear. Assassins, she gasped. In the palace. They are coming for Mother and Minji. Taesung did not think. His engineering training took over. He grabbed Yuna's hand and pulled her into a side corridor. Where is the security control room? 2 floors down, but we cannot. Show me. Now. They ran through the chaos. Palace guards fought with masked intruders. Energy weapons lit up the darkness. Taesung's mind raced, remembering the palace layout he had memorized over the past weeks. He had always paid attention to details. It was how he survived. In the security room, Taesung studied the control panels. Valerian technology was different from Earth's, but the basic principles were the same. Power systems, network connections, safety protocols. He worked quickly, his fingers flying over the controls. What are you doing? Yuna asked, watching him with wide eyes. Their weapons use the palace energy grid. If I overload the secondary power distribution, their weapons will shut down without affecting the main defenses. That is impossible. Our own engineers said. Your engineers think like Valerians. I think like a human. Taesung entered the final command. Throughout the palace, the assassins' weapons died. Palace guards overwhelmed them quickly. When the danger passed, Taesung found himself surrounded by Governor Lirana, her daughters, and a dozen guards. Everyone stared at him with new eyes. He had saved their lives using nothing but his mind and his human way of solving problems. Hana stepped forward. For the first time, she looked at him without disgust. You could have run. You could have hidden and saved yourself. Why did you stay and fight? Taesung met her gaze steadily. Because running and hiding is just surviving. I did that for 3 years in the mines. I am tired of just surviving. Something shifted in Hannah's expression. Not acceptance, not yet, but the beginning of respect. Yuna touched his arm gently. "Thank you," she whispered. "You did not have to protect me." "Yes, I did," Taesung replied. Later, investigators discovered the assassins had been sent by Governor Kale, a rival who opposed Lorana's plan to mix human and Valerian blood. The threat was not over. It was only beginning. But that night, as Taesung returned to his room, he realized something had changed. Minji visited him, her hand resting on her still flat belly. "The baby is safe," she said. "Thanks to you." Yuna came soon after, bringing him tea. "I misjudged you," she admitted. "I thought you were just a human. But tonight you proved that strength comes in many forms." Even Sora, the youngest, knocked timidly on his door. "My sisters say you are brave. I wanted to see for myself." Only Hannah stayed away. But Taesung had seen her expression change. That was enough for now. As he lay in bed that night, Taesung realized he was no longer just surviving. He was beginning to live again. The morning sun filled the medical room with golden light. Taesung stood beside Minji as doctors checked the baby one last time before birth. Her pregnancy had progressed faster than expected. Valerian pregnancies lasted only 6 months, and today marked the end of that journey. Minji gripped his hand tightly. Despite her scientific mind, fear showed clearly on her face. What if something goes wrong? What if the baby is not healthy? "Then we deal with it together," Taesung said softly. "You are not alone in this." Hours later, the baby arrived. The sound of crying filled the room, and Taesung felt tears on his own cheeks. The doctors placed the infant in Minji's arms. The baby girl had her mother's silver eyes, but hair as black as Taesung's. Her skin was a beautiful blend of both parents, pale purple like dawn light. Governor Lorana entered the room, and for the first time since Taesung had met her, tears ran down her face. "She is perfect," Lorana whispered. "Absolutely perfect." News of the birth spread across the empire within hours. The first human Valerian hybrid child. Some celebrated it as a miracle. Others called it an abomination. Governor Kale used his influence to spread fear and doubt. He appeared on public broadcasts claiming that mixed children would destroy Valerian purity. But in the palace, joy overshadowed the outside noise. Even Hannah came to see the baby, though she said nothing. She simply stared at her niece for a long time before leaving quietly. 2 weeks after the birth, Yuna asked to speak with Taesung privately. They met in one of the palace gardens, surrounded by strange alien flowers that glowed softly in the evening light. Yuna wore flowing green robes that matched her gentle nature. "I have been thinking about what happened during the attack," Yuna said, sitting on a stone bench. "You protected me without hesitation. You barely knew me, yet you risked your life." Taesung sat beside her. Anyone would have done the same. "No," Yuna said firmly. "Most would have saved themselves. Even some Valerians would have run. But you stayed." She looked at him with her silver eyes, and Taesung saw something warm there. "I want to be next. Not because Mother commands it. Because I choose you." "Yuna, you do not have to." "I know I do not have to. That is why it matters." She reached out and took his hand. "You are kind, Taesung. In a universe filled with cruelty, kindness is rare. I see it in how you treat Minji, how you hold the baby, how you speak to servants. You do not act like you are better than anyone." Over the following weeks, Taesung and Yuna grew close. Unlike his relationship with Minji, which had been built on intellectual connection, his bond with Yuna formed through quiet moments. They walked in the gardens together. She taught him about Valerian poetry and music. He told her stories about Earth, about oceans and forests she would never see. "Do you miss your home?" Yuna asked one evening. "Every day," Taesung admitted. "But Earth as I knew it is gone. The invasion destroyed so much. Even if I could return, it would not be the same place." "Then we will build something new here," Yuna said. "A place where both our peoples can belong." 3 months after Minji's baby was born, Yuna announced she was pregnant. The palace celebrated again, but the outside pressure grew stronger. Governor Kale demanded that the council investigate Lorana's family. He claimed the hybrid children were a threat to society. During this difficult time, Tae-sung noticed Sora watching him from a distance. The youngest daughter spent most of her time in the palace library, surrounded by books and ancient texts. She was quiet and shy, rarely speaking to anyone outside her immediate family. One afternoon, Tae-sung entered the library looking for information about Valerian history. He wanted to understand this world better. Sora sat at a large table covered with books. She looked up when he entered, and her eyes went wide. "I am sorry," Tae-sung said. "I did not mean to disturb you." "No, it is fine," Sora said quickly. Her voice was soft, barely above a whisper. "What are you looking for?" "Anything about how your people view change. How they handled it in the past." Sora's face lit up with interest. "You want to understand our history? If I am going to be part of this world, I should know where it came from." For the next hour, Sora showed him texts and explained Valerian history with a passion he had not expected. She was brilliant, her knowledge vast despite her young age. When she talked about books, her shyness disappeared. "You love learning," Tae-sung observed. "Books do not judge you," Sora replied. "They do not care if you are the youngest daughter with no real purpose. They just share their knowledge freely." "You think you have no purpose?" Sora looked down at her hands. "Hana will lead. Minji creates new science. Yuna builds bridges between worlds. What do I do? I just read." "Reading is not just reading," Tae-sung said. "Knowledge is power. Understanding the past helps us build the future. That is important." From that day forward, Tae-sung visited the library regularly. He and Sora became friends, bonding over their love of learning. She taught him to read Valerian text. He shared human philosophy and literature with her. Slowly, her shyness around him faded. Meanwhile, Hana remained distant but less hostile. She watched Tae-sung interact with her sisters and saw how he treated them with respect and care. She saw how gentle he was with Minji's baby. She noticed how Yuna smiled more than she had in years. One day, Hana appeared at the training grounds where Tae-sung exercised. He had kept himself fit, remembering that a strong body helped a strong mind. Hana wore her military uniform, and her expression was serious. "I have been unfair to you," she said without preamble. "I judged you as a human before knowing you as a person." Tae-sung stopped his workout and faced her. "And now I see that you have brought my family happiness in a dark time." Minji laughs again. Yuna glows with joy. Even Sora comes out of her shell. Hana crossed her arms. "But I still have doubts. In Valerian culture, strength matters. Leaders must be strong in body and mind." "Are you challenging me?" "Yes. If you want to truly be part of this family, prove yourself. Train with me. Show me that human strength can match Valerian power." Tae-sung could have refused. But he understood what Hana really asked. She needed to respect him before she could accept him. "When do we start?" "Now." 4 weeks, Tae-sung trained with Hana. She pushed him harder than the mines ever had. Combat drills, strategy sessions, physical conditioning. He could not match her raw strength, but he learned to use speed and creativity. He fought smarter, not harder. Hana began to respect his different approach to problems. Where Valerians used power, humans used ingenuity. Both had value. "You surprise me," Hana admitted after a particularly tough training session. "You do not fight like a Valerian, but that is your advantage. You think in ways we do not expect." On Earth, we had a saying. The strongest sword is useless without a wise hand to guide it. Hana studied him for a long moment. "Perhaps you are right." That evening, Hana came to dinner with the family for the first time since Minji's baby was born. She sat beside Tae-sung and actually spoke to him with civility. It was a small step, but an important one. Later that night, Yuna went into labor. Twin boys were born, healthy and strong. The doctors called it unprecedented. Valerian twins were extremely rare. The empire buzzed with excitement and fear in equal measure. Tae-sung held his sons and felt his heart swell with pride and terror. He was a father now. Not just once, but 3 times. These children depended on him. They would face a world that might hate them for being different. But when he looked around the room and saw Minji, Yuna, Lorana, and even Hannah smiling, he knew they would face that world together. The Imperial Council chamber stood at the heart of the capital, a massive building made of black crystal that touched the clouds. Tae-sung had never been inside before. Today, he stood beside Governor Lorana and her daughters as they faced the most important trial of their lives. Governor Kale sat across from them, his dark purple skin almost black in the dim light. His silver eyes held nothing but contempt. Around them, 50 council members watched from elevated seats, their faces unreadable. These powerful Valerians would decide the fate of Lorana's family. "This is an outrage," Kale declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Governor Lorana has violated every tradition our society holds sacred. She has polluted pure Valerian bloodlines with human contamination. These hybrid children are abominations that threaten our entire species." Murmurs rippled through the council. Some members nodded in agreement. Others looked uncertain. Lorana stood tall and proud. "I have broken no laws. The council's own geneticists confirmed that my daughters could not produce offspring with Valerian males. I found a solution that saves my family line and harms no one." "Harms no one." Kale laughed bitterly. "Look at what you have created. 3 hybrid children already, and more coming. What happens when these creatures grow up? What happens when they want positions of power? Will we be ruled by half-humans?" Hannah stepped forward, her military uniform crisp and perfect. "Those children are my family. They carry my blood. If you call them abominations, you insult me directly." "And that is precisely the problem," Kale said. "You have been corrupted by this human. All of you have. You no longer think like true Valerians." The head of the council, an ancient Valerian named Elder Thane, raised his hand for silence. "Governor Kale, you have made serious accusations. Do you have evidence that Governor Lorana's actions threaten the Empire?" "I do," Kale said confidently. He activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air showing the hybrid children. "These creatures are unknown. We do not know what abilities they will develop. We do not know if they can be trusted. They are a security risk." Tae-sung watched the proceedings with growing anger. He had remained silent as requested, but listening to Kale speak about his children as threats made his blood boil. Minji sat beside him, holding their daughter. Yuna nursed one of the twin boys. Both women looked frightened. That night, back at the palace, Tae-sung could not sleep. The trial would continue for days, maybe weeks. Kale had influence and allies. The outcome was far from certain. Tae-sung got up and walked through the quiet halls, thinking. He found himself in Lorana's study, looking at documents and files scattered across her desk. As an engineer, he had learned to see patterns where others saw chaos. Something about Kale bothered him beyond the obvious hatred. The governor's opposition seemed too perfectly timed, too well organized. Tae-sung began reading through files, careful not to disturb anything. He found records of the assassination attempt months ago. The attackers had never revealed who hired them. They died before talking. But someone had paid them, equipped them, and given them access to the palace. An idea formed in his mind. He left the study and went to the security control room. The guard on duty recognized him and nodded respectfully. After the assassination, Tae-sung had been given limited security clearance. "I need to see the communication logs from 6 months ago," Tae-sung said. "Right before the attack." "That is a lot of data," the guard replied. "What are you looking for?" "I will know when I see it." 4 hours, Tae-sung searched through records. He looked for anything unusual, any pattern that did not fit. His engineering mind worked through the data methodically. Then he found it. A series of encrypted messages sent to an unknown location. The messages had been deleted, but fragments remained in the backup systems. Tae-sung worked to reconstruct the messages. They were coded, but he recognized the encryption pattern from his Earth days. Military grade. Whoever sent these knew what they were doing. He spent the entire night breaking the code. As the sun rose, Tae-sung finally read the decrypted messages. His hands shook. The messages came from inside the palace. They gave details about Lorana's family, their schedules, their security protocols. And they were sent to people connected to Governor Kale. But he needed more proof. He needed something that directly connected Kale to the assassination attempt. Taesung thought about what Minji had taught him about Valerian politics. Kale was ambitious but careful. He would not leave obvious evidence. Taesung went to find Minji. She was in her laboratory, running tests on samples from the hybrid children. "I need your help," he said. "I found something, but I need access to government databases that I cannot reach." Minji listened as he explained what he discovered. Her eyes widened. "If what you say is true, Kale committed treason. But we need absolute proof. The Council will not act on fragments and theories. That is why I need you. And Yuna. And Hannah. And Sora. Each of you has access to different parts of the government. Together, we can find what we need." Within hours, all 4 sisters were involved. Minji used her scientific credentials to access research databases. Yuna called on her diplomatic contacts to gather information about Kale's recent activities. Hannah used her military connections to investigate the assassin's weapons and equipment. Sora dove into historical records, looking for patterns in Kale's past behavior. Taesung coordinated everything, seeing how the pieces fit together. For 3 days, they worked in secret. They discovered that Kale had been planning to overthrow Lyrana for years. The hybrid children were just the excuse he needed. He had arranged the assassination attempt, hoping to kill Lyrana and her daughters at once. When that failed, he switched to legal challenges. But the most damning evidence came from financial records. Yuna found hidden accounts where Kale had paid the assassins. The transactions were disguised, but they were there. Minji verified the data. Hannah confirmed the weapons used in the attack were purchased through Kale supply networks. Sora discovered that Kale had used similar tactics against rivals in the past. They brought everything to Lyrana. The governor looked at the evidence with satisfaction and grief. "Kale was my husband's friend once. I never thought he would go this far." "What do we do now?" Hannah asked. "We present this to the council," Lyrana said. "Tomorrow." The next day, the trial resumed. The council chamber was packed. News of a major development had spread. Elder Thane called the session to order. "Governor Lyrana, you requested an emergency presentation. Proceed." Lyrana stood with her daughters beside her. Taesung remained in the background, as was proper for someone without official status. But his work spoke for itself. Minji presented the scientific evidence, explaining the data clearly. Yuna showed the financial records, her diplomatic training making the complex transactions easy to understand. Hannah displayed the weapons analysis, her military expertise undeniable. Sora provided historical context, showing Kale's pattern of betrayal. Together, they built an unbreakable case. Kale had tried to murder the governor and her family. He had conspired against the empire itself. The chamber erupted in chaos. Kale stood, his face twisted with rage. Lies. All lies created by that human and his corrupted allies. "The evidence speaks for itself," Elder Thane said coldly. "Guards, arrest Governor Kale. He will be held pending further investigation." As guards took Kale away, he screamed at Lyrana. "This is not over. I have supporters everywhere. You think you have one, but—" The doors closed, cutting off his words. Elder Thane looked at Lyrana with respect. "It seems we have been deceived. The council will review this evidence thoroughly. But preliminary findings suggest Governor Kale is guilty of conspiracy and attempted murder." That evening, the family gathered in the palace. For the first time in months, they felt safe. Taesung sat with Minji and their daughter. Yuna brought the twin boys over. Hannah actually smiled. Sora sat beside Taesung quietly. She had been watching him throughout the trial. Now she took his hand carefully. "You saved us," she whispered. "You could have stayed silent, but you fought for us." "You are my family now," Taesung said simply. "Family protects each other." Sora's eyes filled with tears. "I was so afraid before. Afraid of you, afraid of this arrangement, afraid of everything. But now I see who you really are." She leaned her head against his shoulder, and Taesung felt something shift in his heart. Sora was different from her sisters. Gentle and kind, thoughtful and deep. He had grown to care for her in ways he had not expected. "Sora," he said softly. "I know," she replied. "I feel it too." Spring came to Valaris with colors Taesung had never seen on Earth. The sky turned shades of purple and pink, and strange flowers bloomed across the palace gardens. 4 months had passed since Governor Kale's arrest. The trial had ended with his conviction. He was stripped of all titles and exiled to a prison colony on the edge of the empire. Life in the palace had changed. Taesung no longer felt like an outsider. Servants greeted him with respect. Palace officials consulted him on matters requiring creative solutions. He had proven himself not just as a father, but as someone valuable to the empire. Minji's daughter was growing fast. She had started walking and saying her first words in both Valerian and the human language Taesung taught her. She had her mother's intelligence and curiosity, always exploring everything she could reach. Yuna's twin boys were loud and energetic. They laughed constantly and seemed to have inherited their mother's warm nature. Yuna herself glowed with happiness. She and Taesung had grown deeply close, sharing a bond built on trust and genuine affection. Hannah had finally accepted her role in the arrangement. After months of training with Taesung and seeing how he cared for her sisters and their children, her resistance had crumbled. One evening, she had come to him and said simply, "I am ready." Their relationship was different from the others. Hannah did not need tender words or romantic gestures. She respected strength and honesty. Taesung gave her both. They understood each other as warriors, two people who had fought their own battles and bore their own scars. 3 months after that night, Hannah announced her pregnancy. She carried herself with pride, her hand often resting on her growing belly. "This child will be strong," she told Taesung. "I feel it." Now only Sora remained. The youngest daughter had spent the past months growing closer to Taesung. They met in the library almost every evening, talking about books and ideas until the stars filled the sky. Their friendship had deepened into something more, something neither of them spoke aloud but both felt. One warm evening, Taesung found Sora in the garden where they had first become friends. She sat on a stone bench, reading by the light of glowing flowers. She looked up when he approached, and her smile made his heart beat faster. "I was hoping you would come," she said softly. Taesung sat beside her. "You have been avoiding the family dinners lately. Are you well?" "I am confused," Sora admitted. She closed her book and turned to face him. "When this arrangement began, I was terrified. You were a stranger, a human, someone I did not understand. But now—" She paused, searching for words. "Now I cannot imagine my life without you in it. You have become my dearest friend." "And you have become mine," Taesung said honestly. "But it is more than friendship, is it not?" Sora's voice was barely a whisper. "I see how you look at me. I feel how my heart races when you are near. I have read 1,000 love stories in my books, but I never understood them until now." Taesung took her hand gently. "Sora, I care for all your sisters. Each relationship is different, special in its own way. But what I feel for you—" He struggled to explain. "With Minji, I found intellectual connection. With Yuna, I found kindness and warmth. With Hannah, I found respect and strength. But with you, I found something I thought I had lost forever. Peace. Understanding. A connection that goes deeper than words." Tears filled Sora's eyes. "I love you, Taesung. Not because my mother commanded it. Not because our family needs heirs. I love you because of who you are. Because you see me, truly see me, not just as the youngest daughter but as myself." "I love you too," Taesung said, and saying the words felt like coming home after a long journey. They sat together in the garden as night fell, holding each other close. For the first time since arriving on Valaris, Taesung felt complete. He had found not just freedom but something far more precious. He had found a family, and within that family, he had found love in its many forms. Weeks later, Sora came to him with news. She was pregnant. The announcement completed the circle that had begun over a year ago when Taesung first stood in the Grand Hall as a slave. Now he stood as a free man, a father, and someone beloved by the entire family. Hannah gave birth first. A son with her fierce spirit and Taesung's clever mind. The boy came into the world screaming with healthy lungs, and Hannah laughed with joy. "He will be a warrior," she declared proudly. The birth brought celebration throughout the empire. The hybrid children were no longer seen as threats by most Valerians. They were the future, proof that two species could create something beautiful together. Governor Lorana watched her family grow with satisfaction. One evening, she called Tae-sung to her private chambers. "When you first came here, I saw you as a solution to a problem. A tool to save my family. I want you to know how wrong I was." "Governor, you do not need to." "Let me finish," Lorana said firmly. "You are not a tool. You are not even just the father of my grandchildren. You have become a son to me. You saved my family not just by giving us heirs, but by teaching us what truly matters. Love. Unity. Looking beyond what we think we know to see what could be." Tae-sung felt emotion thick in his throat. "You gave me back my life. You could have left me in the mines to die forgotten. Instead, you offered me a chance I never dreamed possible." "We saved each other," Lorana said simply. As the months passed, Sora's pregnancy progressed. She read books about being a mother, talked endlessly with her sisters, and spent every free moment with Tae-sung. Their love had grown from friendship into something unshakable. The day Sora went into labor, the entire palace held its breath. Tae-sung stayed by her side through it all, holding her hand and whispering encouragement. When the doctors announced that she was having triplets, everyone was shocked. 3 babies. Sora gasped between contractions. "How is that possible?" "Your body is stronger than you know," the doctor said with wonder. "Human Valerian genetics continue to surprise us." The births took hours, but finally, 3 healthy babies entered the world. 2 girls and 1 boy, each perfect and beautiful. Tae-sung held his children and wept openly. From slave to father of 8 children. The journey seemed impossible, yet here he stood. The palace erupted in celebration. News spread across the empire. Triplets were unheard of, even rarer than Yuna's twins. Some called it a miracle. Others saw it as proof that the hybrid children were blessed by fate itself. Weeks after the births, Governor Lorana made an announcement that shocked everyone. She was retiring. She had served the empire for 30 years, and now it was time for the next generation to lead. "I name my daughter Hannah as the next governor," Lorana declared before the Imperial Council. "And I name Tae-sung as her chief advisor and Lord Consort of our family." The title of Lord Consort was unprecedented for a human. It gave Tae-sung official status, land, wealth, and a voice in government. No longer a slave or even just a free man, he had become nobility. The ceremony took place in the grand hall where Tae-sung had first met the family. He stood in the same spot, but everything had changed. He wore robes of deep blue trimmed with silver. His 8 children were present, held by their mothers. Governor Lorana herself placed a medallion around his neck, the symbol of his new status. "You came to us as a slave," Lorana said to the assembled crowd. "You could have been broken by your circumstances. Instead, you showed us the true meaning of strength. Not the strength of power or violence, but the strength of character, compassion, and love." That evening, the entire family gathered for a celebration. The gardens were filled with lights and music. Tae-sung walked among his children, his heart full to bursting. Minji's daughter grabbed his hand and laughed. Yuna's twins chased each other across the grass. Hannah's son slept peacefully in his mother's arms. Sora's triplets were the center of attention, admired by everyone. Tae-sung found himself surrounded by the 4 sisters. Minji with her sharp mind and gentle heart. Yuna with her diplomatic grace and warm spirit. Hannah with her warrior's pride and newfound tenderness. Sora with her quiet strength and deep love. "We were so different when this began," Minji said thoughtfully. 4 sisters who barely spoke to each other, each lost in our own worlds. "And now we are a true family," Yuna added. "United in ways we never imagined possible." "Because of him," Hannah said, looking at Tae-sung with respect and affection. "He showed us what matters most." Sora took Tae-sung's hand and squeezed gently. "Do you remember that first day? When Mother offered you this choice?" "I remember everything," Tae-sung said. "I was terrified. I thought I was trading one kind of slavery for another." "And what do you think now?" Sora asked. Tae-sung looked at the 4 women who had become his family, at the children playing in the garden, at the palace that had become his home. He thought about the journey from the mines to this moment. Every struggle, every fear, every moment of doubt had led him here. I think, he said slowly, that sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as impossible choices. Your mother gave me a choice between survival and life. I chose life. And life gave me all of you. Governor Lorana raised her glass. To family, she said. To love that crosses boundaries and breaks chains. To a future built not on what divides us, but on what brings us together. To family, everyone echoed. As the celebration continued into the night, Taesung realized the truth. The title said he had been chosen to impregnate 4 daughters. But the real story was different. He had not been chosen. He had been given a gift. The gift of belonging, of purpose, of love in all its forms. And that gift had transformed not just his life but an entire empire.